Aries had hated himself for as long as he could remember. He hated the way his curly hair refused to be tamed, wild and unruly like it had a life of its own. He hated his eyes, dark, dull, strange. He hated the freckles dusted across his chubby cheeks, the roundness of his face that made him look younger than he was. And more than anything, he hated the burn mark that stretched from the corner of his lips to his cheek, a cruel reminder of his mother's anger. His mother had never loved him. She had been harsh, violent, unpredictable. And one night, when he was 17, she had thrown hot oil at him in a fit of rage. He remembered the pain, the sizzling of flesh, the way he had cried and pleaded. But his mother never apologized. She never held him and said she was sorry. Instead, she had just gone on with her life, leaving Aries with scars both visible and invisible. Then she died of cancer, and Aries thought maybe he should feel something, grief, relief, anything. But all he felt was emptiness. Because even though she was gone, the wounds she had left behind never faded. He had been bullied for as long as he could remember. People called him ugly, worthless, disgusting. And he never fought back, never defended himself. Because deep down, he believed them. Maybe they were right. Maybe he did deserve it. That was why he always wore a mask, hiding as much of his face as he could. He didn't want people to look at him, didn't want them to see the truth. But no amount of hiding could stop his heart from falling in love with Louis Johns. Louis, the campus heartthrob, the golden boy. He was everything Aries was not. Tall, confident, effortlessly beautiful. His hair shone like sunlight, soft golden waves that caught the light perfectly. His eyes were the color of the ocean, deep and mesmerizing, full of warmth. And his smile, Aries had never seen anything more breathtaking. Louis wasn't just handsome, he was kind. He treated everyone with the same bright, gentle energy, as if he saw the best in people, even when they couldn't see it in themselves. Aries had fallen in love with him the first time he saw him, a year ago, in a quiet park. Louis had been sitting on a bench, laughing with a friend, his head tilted back, his whole face glowing with happiness. Aries had frozen in place, feeling his heart crack open and bleed all at once. So this is what love feels like. Since then, nothing had been the same. Of course, Louis didn't know. He never would. Aries was just another classmate to him, someone he treated with the same kindness he gave to everyone else. And Aries was okay with that. He never expected anything. He never hoped for anything. Because love wasn't meant for someone like him. Not when he looked the way he did. Not when he was this. Aries adjusted his glasses, shaking his head to clear his thoughts. His fingers fumbled across the desk as he searched for his pen, only to flinch when someone suddenly knelt in front of him, reaching down to pick it up. "You dropped your pen, Aries." His breath caught. His heart raced so fast it felt like it would burst right out of his chest. It was him. Louis stood before him, holding out the pen with that same heart-stopping smile, the one that made Aries weak in the knees. The golden sunlight from the window framed him perfectly, making him look even more unreal. Aries gulped, hands trembling as he took the pen. Thank you," he mumbled, gripping it tightly, as if that could stop the overwhelming anxiety rising inside him. He couldn't even bring himself to look at Louis properly. His ugly reflection didn't deserve to be seen in those breathtaking blue eyes. Louis's smile softened as he tilted his head slightly, his gaze never leaving Aries. "Aries, maybe you don't know, but today is my birthday." Aries' eyes widened. Of course he knew. He had known for weeks. But the thought of stepping forward and wishing Louis directly had terrified him. I do know," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. Louis's eyes sparkled. "Really? Then, do you think you could come to my birthday party tonight?" Aries froze. Me? Yes, please," Louis said eagerly, his expression open and inviting. "I'd really like it if you came." Aries' throat went dry. This had to be a joke. A mistake. Why would someone like Louis want someone like him at his party? It didn't make sense. Before he could answer, a sharp voice cut through the moment. "Louis, what's wrong with you? Why invite that pig over?" One of their classmates sneered, followed by quiet chuckles from a group nearby. Aries clenched his jaw, biting the inside of his cheek to keep himself from reacting. Of course. He should have known. He had no place there. His presence would only ruin everything. What he didn't see, however, was the way Louis's face darkened, his usual warmth vanishing as he shot a sharp glare at the classmate. But instead of addressing them, Louis turned back to Aries, his gaze soft again, almost pleading. Aries quickly gathered his books, clutching them to his chest as he stood up. I'll be busy, I shouldn't go, he muttered, trying to leave. But then he froze. Louis had grabbed his wrist. Aries, please, Louis said, voice low, eyes sparkling with something so genuine it made Aries' heart ache. Don't say no. I really want you to come. It would make me happy. Aries stared at him, his mind screaming at him to pull away, to run, to hide. But his feet wouldn't move. But, don't you think of me as a friend? Louis asked, his voice quieter now. Why do you keep rejecting me? Do I make you uncomfortable? The look on Louis's face was devastating, like a puppy caught in the rain, like he was on the verge of breaking. Aries panicked. No, it's not that. Never. I don't feel uncomfortable, really. I'm sorry for making you feel that way. Aries rushed out, heart pounding. Louis's lips stretched into a small, hopeful smile. Then please come. His voice was gentle, almost coaxing. Pretty please. Aries swallowed hard. The way Louis was looking at him, the way his entire face lit up with excitement, it was too much. Fine, he finally mumbled, his ears burning. Louis beamed, his joy so pure that Aries forgot, just for a second, how much he hated himself. Thank you so much. Louis grinned. Please do, I have something to tell you. Aries blinked. What is it? Louis chuckled, his ocean blue eyes twinkling mischievously. I'll tell you at the party. He winked playfully before walking away, leaving Aries staring after him in stunned silence. And despite everything, despite all the self-hatred, all the doubts, Aries smiled. Because only Louis could make him feel good without even trying. The party was grand. Glittering lights bathed the room in a golden glow, and the air buzzed with laughter and music. Everyone looked stunning, dressed in designer clothes, radiating confidence and elegance. But Aries had no idea what to wear. He had never been to a party before. After spending hours debating, he gave up and wore his usual hoodie, pants, and a mask. The only effort he made was styling his hair a little, pushing it back enough so it wasn't a complete mess. Even then, as he stood outside the grand house, he felt so out of place. His fingers dug into the fabric of his hoodie as he hesitated at the door. Maybe he should just leave. Aries, you really came. A warm, familiar voice rang out, and Aries flinched. Louis. He had been talking to a group of friends, but the moment his eyes landed on Aries, his entire face lit up. There was so much joy in his voice, as if he had been waiting just for him. Aries awkwardly scratched his head. Yeah, I did. Happy birthday, Louis. I hope all your future years go well, and may all your wishes come true. Louis smiled, a soft, knowing look in his eyes. You think so too. My wishes should be fulfilled, right? Yes, of course. Aries nodded, smiling shyly. Louis kept looking at him, eyes lingering like he wanted to say more. But before he could, someone called for him. Aries immediately gestured for him to go. Go, they're calling you. Louis hesitated, but after a second, he nodded, walking back toward his friends. Aries exhaled, sinking into the nearest couch. But every time he glanced up, his eyes met Louis's, as if the birthday boy was searching for him in the crowd. It made Aries' heart beat faster, his nerves skyrocketing. The moment of cake cutting arrived, and everyone gathered around Louis. The birthday cake was enormous, decorated elegantly. The guests showered him with expensive gifts, watches, designer clothes, jewelry. Aries, sitting in the corner, felt smaller and smaller as he watched. He had no idea what he was thinking, coming here. He didn't belong. Until suddenly, Louis appeared in front of him, a plate of cake in hand. Why didn't you come over when I was cutting the cake? Louis pouted, watching as Aries happily ate the cake without a care in the world. Aries swallowed, rubbing his nape. I just didn't want to be in the way. Louis huffed, sitting beside him. Aries noticed how the cake was his favorite flavor. Had Louis known? No, it had to be a coincidence. You look really good tonight. Louis's voice was quiet, laced with something unreadable. Aries choked, coughing loudly. Are you kidding me? Louis frowned, confused. Why do you think that? Aries went silent. No one had ever called him pretty before. He had nothing worth calling beautiful. Louis was just being nice, he shouldn't get his hopes up. Louis tilted his head, eyes playful again. Didn't you get me any gift, Aries stiffened. I did, but I don't think you'd like it, so just forget it. Louis smirked. Liking it or not depends on me, right? Shouldn't I see it first and then decide? Aries hesitated. There was something about Louis's gaze, serious, intense, something he rarely saw. Slowly, he pulled out a small box from his hoodie pocket and handed it over. But before he could get up and run away, Louis grabbed his wrist, pulling him back down. Aries' heart skipped as he found himself squished beside Louis, his long legs surrounding him in a loose trap, keeping him from escaping. You're not running away, Louis said casually, opening the box. Inside lay a handmade bracelet, a black string with small, pearl-like rings woven into it, along with 5 round pearls forming the letters of Louis's name. Louis's breath hitched. His fingers trembled slightly as he lifted it. Is this homemade? Did you make it? Aries, too busy trying to calm his own emotions, barely noticed. Ah, yeah, I know how to make simple things. Louis's lips parted slightly before curling into the softest smile. You're so talented. Aries blinked. It's nothing special. It is special. Louis shook his head, eyes shimmering. I love it. It's adorable. Thank you. Aries stared at him, swallowing hard. Why does he always say things that make my heart do weird things? Let me help you wear it, Aries mumbled. He took Louis's wrist, fastening the bracelet gently. When he looked up, he found Louis staring at it with childlike excitement, his eyes sparkling as if he had just received the best gift in the world. You look like a kid getting their favorite toy, Aries chuckled, ruffling Louis's hair without thinking. The moment he realized what he had done, he froze. His entire body stiffened as he quickly looked away. What he didn't see was Louis's ears and cheeks turning a deep shade of red. Brother Aries, Louis started softly. What I wanted to say. Before he could finish, people called for him again. Aries took the opportunity. You should go. You can tell me anytime. Louis frowned slightly but nodded. Okay, but stay here. Wait for me. Aries only nodded, watching as Louis stood up. The moment he left, Aries let out a slow breath, pressing a hand over his chest. His heartbeat was wild, erratic. What was this feeling? And why did Louis make it so hard to breathe? The night was cold. The wind howled softly, sending shivers down Aries' spine as he sat on the damp sand. He had run away from the party, it was too suffocating for him. The waves rolled in, silver under the moonlight, glistening like the stars above. It should have been a beautiful sight, but all Aries could do was let his tears fall into the endless sea. Why am I like this? His voice trembled as he sniffled, his hands clenching into fists. The mask that had been suffocating him all night was gone, thrown carelessly to the side. His glasses lay abandoned on the ground, forgotten. It hurt, more than he ever thought it would. Louis's words from earlier echoed in his mind like a cruel melody, tormenting him. Do you like someone? Someone had asked. And Louis, he had answered without hesitation. Yes, I do. No, someone I love. Like crazy. Aries had frozen when he heard it. The way Louis said it, his voice dripping with warmth, his eyes soft with unfiltered emotion, there was no doubt. It was real. Louis was in love. Not just a crush, not just a fleeting feeling, he loved someone. Deeply, madly. Aries had never felt so broken. How lucky that person is, he thought bitterly, his heart twisting. How lucky to be loved by someone like Louis. And Aries, he had never stood a chance. He didn't even consider having one. Who would like him? Who would want him? Louis was like the stars, shining brilliantly, unreachable. Too far away to touch. Aries let out a shaky breath, his nails digging into his palms. He loved Louis so much that, if given the chance, he wouldn't mind stealing him away. But how? With his looks? With his presence? It was ridiculous. Only if I was prettier. Aries whispered brokenly. His voice cracked as his body curled into itself, his arms wrapping around his trembling frame. Maybe then he'd like me. Maybe if I was a pretty, delicate girl, maybe then I'd have a chance to make him mine. His tears spilled endlessly, quiet sobs swallowed by the sound of crashing waves. His vision blurred, his chest aching as if someone had reached inside and squeezed his heart. He was too lost in his misery to notice. The stars above shimmered, but one, in particular, shone brighter than all the rest. And it was shining directly on him. The morning light streamed through the window, hitting Aries' face as he groggily woke up. His head pounded slightly, the memories of last night flooding in like an unstoppable tide. The party, the words he overheard, the way he had run to the beach, cried his heart out, then somehow stumbled back home, only to cry more. He groaned, rubbing his face before pushing himself up. His body felt oddly different, lighter maybe, but he was too tired to think about it. Stumbling toward the bathroom, he grabbed his toothbrush lazily, stuffing it into his mouth while staring at his reflection. His mind was blank. Then, what the fuck? Aries' toothbrush clattered into the sink as he stumbled back, his hands flying to his face. No, this wasn't his face. His scars, gone. The freckles he had grown up with, disappeared. His once dull eyes now gleamed with a breathtaking honeyed color, wide and bright. His hair, which had always been a mess of uneven strands, was now long, silky, and golden, cascading perfectly over his shoulders. His jawline had softened, his features now delicate and breathtakingly pretty. He wasn't a guy anymore. He was a woman. A thin, ethereal figure stared back at him. A face that was both beautiful and innocent, the kind of beauty that people would turn their heads for. The kind of face Aries had always wished for if he were born a girl. Tears pricked his eyes. His hands trembled as he covered his mouth. "Is this real?" he whispered, voice shaking. He turned his face, touching his cheeks, his nose, his lips. Everything was real. His chest rose and fell rapidly as he pinched himself. Ouch! He winced, then gawked at himself in the mirror. This can't be. Did my wish really come true? A broken smile formed on his lips as he stared at his reflection, his vision blurring with tears. I've gotten so pretty. His heart pounded wildly. If this was real, if fate had given him a miracle, then that meant he had a chance now, right? He could finally try to make Louis his. The thought sent a rush of nervous excitement through his veins. He didn't know how this happened, didn't know why, but he didn't care. Right now, luck was on his side. Quickly, he got dressed. He threw on his usual oversized hoodie and pants, but even in such a simple outfit, he looked effortlessly beautiful. His new face, his new form, it was almost unreal. Grabbing his bag, he rushed outside, his heart pounding in his chest. People turned to look at him as he ran past, their eyes lingering in awe. Aries had never been noticed before, not like this. But there was only one person he wanted to see him. From the campus forum, he had learned that Louis was at a bar near campus. The whispers said he was in a bad mood. A bad mood. Why? Aries didn't hesitate. He ran straight to the bar, his mind racing with possibilities. Was it because of last night? Did something happen after he left? It didn't take long for him to spot Louis, sitting at the farthest corner of the dimly lit bar, drowning himself in wine. Girls surrounded him, their eyes filled with admiration, leaning close, trying to get his attention. But Louis didn't even look at them. His eyes were shadowed, his expression dark and unreadable. His usual warmth, gone. Aries gripped the strap of his bag, his breath shaky. Taking a deep gulp, he approached. Hey, you look drunk. Please don't disturb me. The sharp, cold voice hit Aries like a slap. His heart skipped. Louis hadn't even looked up at him. His deep voice, always warm when talking to Aries, now carried a weight of exhaustion and something almost bitter. Aries hesitated. But you, please. I am not into girls. I like guys. Now leave. Louis took another sip of his drink, his gaze still never rising to Aries. His words rang like thunder in Aries' ears. Not into girls. Not into girls. Aries stood frozen, his mind blank as his heart cracked into a million pieces. What cruel twist of fate was this? He had been granted his wish, had woken up with a miracle, only to find out that Louis wasn't even interested in women. Tears threatened to fall, but Aries quickly turned, walking away before Louis could see them. A bitter laugh almost escaped his lips. Wow, what luck. That day, Aries spent the entire time crying again. His heart ached so badly it felt like it might never heal. He had been so happy, so sure that fate had finally smiled upon him, only for reality to slap him harder than ever. By the time he passed out from exhaustion, his pillow was soaked with tears. But the next morning, when he woke up, he was himself again. A guy. His body felt familiar, but something was different. His hands shot up to his face, touching his skin. His scars were gone. His freckles, gone. Everything else remained the same, but now, he was beautiful. Not in a delicate, feminine way, but strikingly handsome. His features were refined, sharp yet gentle, the kind of face that turned heads effortlessly. His honey-colored eyes shone even brighter, and his once unruly hair now fell into place perfectly. It was a miracle. His wish had come true again. Aries' heart pounded in his chest. Would Louis look at him now? Wasting no time, he got ready, styling his hair carefully. His reflection stared back at him, a boy who was no longer overlooked, no longer seen as ordinary. For the first time, Aries felt confident. Pulling on a sweater and jeans, he grabbed his bag and stepped outside, feeling the weight of countless gazes on him. People noticed him now. He wasn't invisible anymore. But deep inside, he was still terrified. What if I get rejected again? He was so lost in thought that he didn't see where he was going, until he bumped into someone hard. Ouch, Aries winced, rubbing his forehead before looking up. And his heart stopped. Louis. The very man who had driven him crazy with love. Louis was on his phone, but the moment he saw Aries, he froze. His deep eyes widened in shock. You. Without a word, Louis grabbed him and pulled him into a tight embrace. Aries' breath hitched. His whole body stiffened, mind racing. Did Louis recognize him? Did he somehow know? What are you doing? Aries stammered, trying to pull back. I think you've mistaken me for someone else. Louis slowly pulled away, studying his face carefully. His brows furrowed in confusion. Then, who are you? Aries hesitated, his mind scrambling for an answer. My name is. Before he could say anything, Louis's grip on his hand tightened. His eyes darkened as if something had just clicked in his mind. Then, without warning, what if you disappear again? Louis murmured under his breath. Before Aries could react, Louis took a deep breath, his entire body tense. I don't want to waste time, Louis said, his voice uncharacteristically desperate. So I'll just say it. Aries blinked. Can we date? Aries' brain shut down. You heard me right, Louis said quickly. His eyes, usually calm and unreadable, were now wide and full of emotion. Please. I really like you. I want us to date. Please. Aries swore he saw hearts in Louis's eyes. He felt his heart slam against his ribs. This was too sudden. Was he dreaming? Was fate really playing with him again? A selfish thought crept into his mind. Would it be wrong to take advantage of this? Would he be a bad person for ignoring the weirdness of it all? Would it make him toxic if he just accepted it? Because this was his daydream coming true. Louis himself was asking him to date. Could anything be more shocking? Could anything bring him more joy? His fingers clenched around his bag strap, his heart racing. Oh okay, Aries whispered, looking down. Louis's reaction was instant. A deep breath of relief, as if he had just found his missing soul. And then, another hug. A tight, warm, desperate hug. I'm sorry for doing this without your permission, Louis murmured, holding him close. But I just can't control it. Aries closed his eyes, inhaling Louis's scent, his lips curving into a small, disbelieving smile. It's okay. He didn't care if this was a trick of fate. Right now, he just wanted to live in the moment. But when Aries woke up the next morning, he braced himself for another cruel reality check. Only to receive the biggest shock of all. A notification blinked on his phone. Good morning. It's Louis. Do you think we can hang out together? Aries' hands trembled as he reread the messages. His gaze fell to his wrist. The bracelet. The one he had gifted Louis long ago. Suddenly, a memory crashed into him. Even yesterday, when he was a girl, Louis had been wearing this bracelet too. His stomach flipped. His fingers pinched his arm hard. Ouch. Not a dream. Not a dream. His feet carried him downstairs in a daze, heart pounding so fast he thought he might faint. And then, he stopped in his tracks. Louis, leaning against the wall, waiting for him. His usual blank expression immediately melted the second he saw Aries. His eyes sparkled like stars. And then, a smile. "Hi," Louis greeted, his voice warm. Aries swallowed. Hi. Louis tilted his head. "Did you have breakfast?" Aries shook his head. Louis's lips curled into a soft smile. "Then, can we eat together?" Aries' heart flipped. Slowly, he nodded. The fancy restaurant was filled with the soft hum of chatter, but Aries barely heard any of it as he sat across from Louis. The man's eyes were on him, his gaze full of admiration, and it felt so surreal to Aries that he was sitting here, sharing a meal with the person he had once only dreamed about. Louis's smile was warm and genuine, almost too perfect, and it made Aries' heart flutter in ways he couldn't control. "What would you like to eat?" Louis asked, his voice soft and gentle, the words flowing out with such kindness that Aries couldn't help but be charmed. "You can order anything you want. It's my treat," he added, his voice almost too calm for someone who was so clearly excited to be spending time with Aries. Aries blinked, a little overwhelmed. The reality of the situation was still sinking in. He quickly glanced over the menu, his nerves making it hard to concentrate. He ordered a few dishes he hadn't tried before, ones he thought might be fun to try. When the food arrived, the table was filled with vibrant colors and the delicious scents of different cuisines. Aries couldn't help but feel joy welling up inside of him as he dug in. The food tasted so good, and the warmth in his chest only seemed to grow with every bite. Meanwhile, Louis watched him with a fond look in his eyes, clearly enjoying the moment, even if he didn't say much. "Can we go out for a walk?" Louis asked, his tone composed, though the smile on his lips couldn't hide the excitement. "I mean, it's a date, right? We should hang out more." Aries froze at the mention of the word, date. His heart skipped a beat, and he blinked, his face flushing as his mind raced. Date? Is this really happening? Before he could respond, Louis stood up and walked over to him. Without a word, Louis reached out, his hand gently wiping a small smear of sauce from Aries' lips. His touch was light and tender, so careful, like he was handling something fragile. The simple gesture sent a wave of warmth rushing through Aries. His heart hammered in his chest, his breath catching as he felt his face burn with embarrassment. Louis's eyes softened as he looked down at him. "You okay?" he asked quietly, his voice low and full of affection. Aries nodded quickly, his mind swirling. "Louis likes me, he's acting like he does, but what if it's just because of my face?" He couldn't shake the thought, and despite the happiness that bubbled up inside of him, a small voice of doubt crept into his mind. What if he's only here because of how I look? What if he's just falling for the pretty face and not the real me? Still, as the evening wore on, Aries found himself enjoying the time with Louis more than he ever expected. They walked through the park, the sun setting behind them, casting everything in a golden hue. They stopped for ice cream, laughing as they ate together. Then, they made their way to the amusement park, where they rode roller coasters, with Aries terrified out of his mind, and Louis laughing at him all the while. They went through a haunted house, where Louis was the one clinging to Aries for dear life, making him laugh even harder. It was like a dream, everything falling into place in ways he could barely comprehend. The evening ended with fireworks lighting up the sky, painting the night with brilliant colors. Aries stared up, his eyes wide with wonder, lost in the beauty of the moment. Louis stood beside him, his gaze on Aries, watching him with an expression of adoration. "Can we hold hands?" Louis asked softly, his voice barely above a whisper, but there was a sincerity in it that made Aries' heart swell. Aries' face flushed as he looked at Louis, his hand trembling at the thought. He had never been so nervous in his life. But, with a deep breath, he nodded. Louis smiled brightly, his hand reaching for Aries, and intertwining their fingers. The fit was perfect, like they were always meant to be this way. Aries felt his heart race, the warmth of Louis's hand in his sending a wave of emotions crashing over him. But then, something surprised him. He felt Louis's hand trembling, just slightly, and it left him confused. Why is his hand shaking? I'm so happy, Louis said, his voice filled with pure joy. Thank you for agreeing to date me. I know it's just the first day, but I'll make sure to keep you happy forever, Aries. Aries froze, his breath caught in his throat. Wait, he knows. He knows who I really am. His mind raced, his chest tightening. Does he know everything? Why you know? Aries stuttered, his voice barely above a whisper. He was shaking now, his heart hammering in his chest as the reality of the situation hit him like a ton of bricks. Louis looked at him, puzzled. Know what? He asked, clearly confused by the question. Aries could feel his heart pounding harder. He knows I'm not who I look like, doesn't he? He could barely hold himself together. His emotions were overwhelming him, and everything felt too surreal. You know that, I'm not really like this isn't my real face, this isn't right, Aries said, his voice trembling with fear. You shouldn't like me, Louis. You deserve someone perfect, someone beautiful and kind, not someone like me. I'm not right for you. He pulled his hand away from Louis's, shaking his head. I don't deserve this, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Aries turned away from Louis, his heart breaking as tears welled up in his eyes. I've been selfish, and now I'm about to lose everything. Before Louis could say anything, Aries couldn't take it anymore. He turned and ran, his legs carrying him away from the man who had made him feel so special, so loved. He couldn't stay there, couldn't face Louis, not like this. Not when he felt so unworthy. Louis stood there, shocked and confused, his heart aching as he watched Aries disappear into the distance. The smile that had once been on his face faded, and he stood there, lost, all confused. A week had passed since that emotional moment at the beach, and Aries locked himself away in his room, refusing to face anyone, especially Louis. He had skipped classes, hiding in his sanctuary, unsure of why things had gone so wrong. After that day, it felt like the glow he had experienced had completely disappeared. Maybe this was the punishment for his greed, for allowing himself to want something so badly, something so unattainable. He was back to his ugly self, the one who didn't deserve any kind of affection, not from someone like Louis. The days felt longer, and the pain inside him only grew stronger. But one day, seeking solace, Aries decided to leave the confines of his room. He put on his mask and glasses, hoping to hide his face from the world. He walked to the beach, the one place that always gave him some kind of peace. As he sat there, staring at the dark sky above, his tears fell freely, mingling with the salty breeze. The stars glittered, offering no comfort, but a brief distraction from the turmoil inside him. He slowly pulled down his mask to wipe away his tears, but then he felt a presence beside him. His heart skipped a beat, and before he could comprehend what was happening, he looked up to find a familiar figure standing there. Louis. Louis stood there, eyes wide and glistening with unshed tears, staring at him intensely. Before Aries could speak, Louis's voice broke the silence. Why are you doing this to me? Louis's voice trembled with emotion, the pain evident in his words. Aries, heart clenched in his chest. What? Louis, what happened? Why are you crying? He asked, unable to hide his concern. Louis sniffed, sitting down beside Aries, his tears falling freely now. You're bad, Louis said, his voice small and vulnerable. You ghosted me. We just dated for a day, and you dumped me. Aries was taken aback, blinking in confusion. Huh, Louis continued, his voice growing more desperate. Didn't I say I loved you? And I wanted us to date. How could you leave me like that? Disappear on me like this? Aries stared at him, utterly confused. Louis, it's me. Do you see? Louis frowned deeply, his eyes filling with pain. Of course, I see it's you. If it wasn't you, would I be crying like this? You're the only one who's ever made me feel like this. From the moment I saw you last year, until now, I've been in love with you. I wanted you by my side. And when I thought we were finally dating, after just one day, you ghosted me. Why? What did I do wrong? His voice cracked, and his tears fell uncontrollably as he sobbed, sounding like a lost child. Aries sat there, stunned, his heart racing. He had no idea what was happening. Love me. You're in love with me. From last year. What the hell? How? His voice wavered, filled with disbelief. Louis's gaze softened as he wiped his tears away with trembling hands. It was the first time I saw you, at the park. You were playing with a kitten, and I just couldn't help but think you were the most adorable thing I had ever seen. Then, I saw you again at a cafe, eating chocolate cake like a little baby. It was so charming. He spoke as though each memory was etched in his mind, each word coming out with a sense of longing and nostalgia. After that, I found out you were at my school, but we were in different majors. So, I changed mine just to be closer to you. But every time I tried to talk to you, you avoided me. It hurt, Aries. It really did. Aries was completely dumbfounded. His mind was racing, trying to process everything Louis had just said. He had always avoided Louis because he thought he didn't belong beside someone as beautiful and perfect as him. He never realized Louis had felt this way. He had never considered that someone like Louis could want to be with someone like him. Aries couldn't find the words. He bit his lip in frustration, feeling a mix of guilt and confusion, his emotions all tangled up. Before he could speak again, Louis suddenly grabbed his hands, pulling him out of his swirling thoughts. Tell me why you did it, Louis whispered, his voice quiet but intense. Did I do something wrong? Was I not enough for you? You agreed to date me, just for one day. So why did you leave? Was it because I knew it was you that time? Or was it because of the way I rejected you when you were a girl? I was drunk, and I was mad. I wanted to confess that night, and you left the party before I could. But the next day, when I saw you again, you looked completely different, but the moment I saw your eyes, I knew it was you. I just knew. His voice was filled with such emotion, like he was confessing the deepest parts of his heart. I was so desperate to be with you, Aries. I didn't think, I just acted. I asked you to be mine, and when you said yes, I was happier than I'd ever been. You acted like you were still uncertain, and I thought maybe you needed time, so I didn't push. I was just happy to be with you. That one day was the happiest day of my life. If you'll have me, I want to spend my entire life with you. Aries's mind was spinning, his heart pounding wildly in his chest. So, you knew it was me the whole time? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Louis nodded slowly, his expression soft and full of sincerity. Of course. I would never mistake those eyes of yours. They're too beautiful, too unique. He smiled gently, a faint hint of sadness still lingering behind his gaze. This isn't right, you shouldn't like me. I look bad, no, I'm ugly. There's nothing to like about me. Aries's voice trembled as he spoke, but before he could say anything else, Louis cut him off gently. No, stop, please, Louis said urgently, his voice pained. Don't say things like that. It hurts me. It feels like someone is badmouthing the treasure I've spent my entire life searching for. His eyes softened, his gaze full of sincerity and emotion. I don't care how you look. Yes, I'm into guys, but you are the one I want. I don't mind whether you're a girl or a guy. I just want you. Although, I do prefer the original you. Louis's face shifted slightly, his expression turning intense with desire and longing. His fingers gently traced the soft curve of Aries's cheek. I love your chubby cheeks and those freckles of yours. They're the cutest and fluffiest things, like little dumplings that I just want to keep nibbling on. And your eyes, they remind me of the starry sky. They're so beautiful, I could get lost in them forever. His gaze dropped to Aries's lips, his fingers brushing over them lightly. Your lips are so cute, so fluffy, plump and inviting. I just want to keep kissing them forever, never letting go. His voice was full of longing, each word dripping with affection. Then, his finger lightly traced the scar on Aries's burnt side. And this. I don't know what happened, and I don't even know if it hurts anymore, but I just want to keep kissing it, to soothe any lingering pain, if there's any left. His voice cracked slightly, his emotions raw. I just like everything about you. The way you smile, the way your eyes sparkle like this stars in the sky, the way you talk, the way you enjoy eating, the way you treat everyone so kindly, even when they treat you badly. There are so many things about you that I like, so many little things that I can't even name them all in one go. Louis's voice grew softer, and his gaze softened as he continued, his tone almost reverent. Just being near you, it feels like heaven. You don't even know, Aries, you don't know how much I have to mentally prepare myself before I talk to you. I don't want to mess up in front of you. He let out a soft sigh, his hands gently cupping Aries's face. There hasn't been a single night where I didn't dream of you. Just thinking about you makes me feel calm. Just thinking of you is enough to make me fall asleep in peace. Louis's words hung in the air, raw and vulnerable, his heart laid bare for Aries to see. The intensity of his feelings was undeniable, and Aries could feel it in every word, every touch. It was overwhelming, but there was something comforting about it, something real. Aries's eyes were red now, a flush spreading across his face as Louis's words hit him like a wave. He could hardly believe what he was hearing. But, someone as perfect as you, why would you like me? I'm nothing. Louis cut him off, his voice low and serious, sending a shiver down Aries's spine. Talk like that about yourself one more time, and I'll kiss you so hard you won't be able to feel your lips for at least a week. And I mean it. The intensity in Louis's voice left Aries stunned, his face flushing even more. He couldn't find the words to respond, his heart pounding in his chest. Louis then smiled gently, his expression softening as he reached for Aries's hand. He kissed the back of it tenderly, his eyes never leaving Aries's. So, now that your misunderstandings are cleared up, can we please date? I want you to be mine forever. The words were too much for Aries to handle. His emotions surged as he broke down into tears, nodding as he clung to Louis tightly. Louis immediately wrapped his arms around him, holding him close, as if he never wanted to let go. Louis's voice softened even more as he gently lifted Aries's chin, his eyes filled with desire and tenderness. Can I? He asked softly, his words carrying both longing and consent. Aries smiled through his tears, nodding, and Louis smiled back before slowly leaning in. Their lips met in a soft, sweet kiss that felt like the world had stopped moving. Time seemed to slow as their hearts bloomed, everything else fading away, replaced by the warmth of their shared moment. The cold wind and the vast expanse of the starry sky were nothing compared to the fire between them. The kiss started gentle, almost tentative, before it deepened with all the emotion Louis had been holding back. He poured all his love, his desperation, into the kiss, making Aries's lips numb from the intensity. Louis wanted to do more, to show Aries just how much he cared, but he didn't want to overwhelm him. So, reluctantly, he pulled back, leaving Aries breathless and flushed. Louis smiled and kissed his forehead softly before pulling him into another hug. Can we go to your house? He asked suddenly, his voice full of affection. Aries looked up at him, his eyes sparkling, and nodded without hesitation. Louis grinned, showering him with soft kisses. I just need to make sure you realize how beautiful you are, Aries. And how much more beautiful you can get under these clothes. I'm going to show you that tonight. Aries's face turned bright red at the suggestion, his mind spinning, but before he could say anything, Louis giggled like a devil, hugging him tighter. Aries could hardly believe what was happening, but all he could do was chuckle, feeling the warmth and love radiating from Louis. He wrapped his arms around him, feeling completely secure and in love. This was just the beginning, and he couldn't wait to see where it would lead.